In the early 15th century, the shadow of a vast empire loomed over Transylvania, a small kingdom in the heart of Romania. Its ruler imposed a brutal demand. Thousands of boys were taken from their homes to serve as soldiers. Among them was a boy named Vlad, destined to become known for his fierce legacy as Vlad the Impaler. Years passed, and Vlad grew into a formidable leader. After freeing himself from his oppressors, he returned to his homeland to claim his title as Prince of Transylvania. Under his rule, the cruel practice of taking children was abolished. Yet even as his people rejoiced, whispers of an unknown danger began to spread. One day, Vlad and his men found a battered helmet lying by the riverbank, its surface marked by strange, deep scratches. Dumitru, his loyal captain, studied it with unease. Determined to uncover the truth, Vlad led his group on a search that would take them into the heart of mystery. Their journey brought them to the heights of Broken Tooth Mountain, where a dark cave awaited. Inside, the air was heavy with silence, broken only by the unsettling sight of scattered remains. Without warning, a shadowy figure lunged from the depths, striking with terrifying speed and leaving 2 men injured. Vlad fought valiantly, his blade flashing as he confronted the creature. But this was no ordinary foe. A beam of sunlight cut through the gloom, forcing the figure to retreat. Seizing the chance, Vlad used his sword to redirect the light, driving the enemy back into the darkness. After the harrowing encounter at Broken Tooth Mountain, Vlad returned to the towering walls of Castle Dracula. Haunted by the creature he had faced, he sought answers from Lucian, a priest renowned for his knowledge of the supernatural. Lucian revealed the creature to be a vampire, an immortal being cursed to feed on human blood, bound to its torment until another takes its place. The revelation cast a chilling shadow over Vlad's thoughts. Back at the castle, Vlad found solace in his family. His son Ingaras and his wife Marina welcomed him with warmth and pride, their embrace a reminder of what he fought to protect. The following day, the people of Transylvania celebrated a decade of freedom from the Sultan's reign with a grand festival. Laughter and music filled the air until Hamza Bey, an envoy of Sultan Mehmed, arrived unannounced, flanked by soldiers. Hamza delivered the Sultan's demands, a hefty tribute in silver. Though reluctant, Vlad agreed, seeking to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. But Hamza's second demand shattered the fragile peace. The Sultan required 1,000 boys from Transylvania to serve as soldiers, among them Vlad's own son. Rage burned within Vlad as he refused outright, commanding Hamza to leave. That night, Mirena voiced her fears for Ingaras's safety, and Vlad resolved to seek a peaceful solution. Journeying to Sultan Mehmed's court, he offered himself in place of the boys. Yet Mehmed coldly rejected his plea, unmoved by Vlad's sacrifice. The ruler's demands remained steadfast, leaving no room for negotiation. When Hamza returned to claim Ingaras, the air was taut with dread. Mirena wept quietly as the ceremonial handover began, her eyes fixed on her son. Vlad, outwardly calm but inwardly simmering, leaned down and whispered to Ingaras, "Go to your mother now." As his son darted back to Mirena's arms, Vlad acted swiftly, seizing Hamza's sword and striking down the soldiers in a blur of precision. The immediate threat was vanquished, but Vlad knew his defiance would not go unanswered. Sultan Mehmed's wrath loomed on the horizon, and war was now inevitable. After sending his family back to Castle Dracula, Vlad returned alone to Broken Tooth Mountain, seeking the master vampire he had once encountered. Emerging from the shadows, the creature regarded Vlad with a piercing gaze but did not attack. It seemed to understand the gravity of Vlad's presence. Desperation weighed heavy on Vlad as he confessed his willingness to embrace darkness to gain the strength needed to protect his family from the looming threat of the Turkish Empire. The master vampire warned him of the price: 3 days without drinking blood. Should he fail, Vlad would be cursed to remain a vampire for eternity. With no other path before him, Vlad accepted the terms. The creature offered its own blood, dark and foul, for Vlad to consume. Forcing himself to drink, Vlad felt searing pain explode through his body, his screams echoing through the cavern. As his vision faded, the master vampire whispered, "After this, you will die." Vlad awoke on the rocky banks of a river, his body transformed. A sacred ring he wore scorched his skin, forcing him to tear it off. Testing his newfound strength, he accidentally shattered a stone with his bare hand. His senses were heightened, and to his shock, he discovered the ability to transform into a swarm of bats and take flight. Back at Castle Dracula, Turkish forces began their assault. Racing against time, Vlad returned to defend his family and his people. Cloaked in shadows, he unleashed his newfound powers, obliterating hundreds of enemy soldiers. Though his people celebrated the victory, they could not ignore the eerie changes in their prince. After the battle, Vlad commanded his people to evacuate to the monastery fortress, a stronghold he believed would shield them from further attacks. As the group rested along their journey, Vlad felt an unbearable thirst clawing at his resolve. Struggling against his nature, he distanced himself from his companions. Seeking solace, he visited Marina in her tent, hoping her presence might calm his torment. But the thirst only grew stronger, forcing him to flee into the forest. While wandering the forest, Vlad encountered a man named Shkelgim, whose knowing eyes seemed to understand Vlad's secret. Shkelgim offered himself to help ease Vlad's overwhelming thirst, but Vlad refused with firm resolve. He knew that succumbing to temptation would mean losing control forever. Meanwhile, Sultan Mehmed led his army toward Castle Dracula, only to find a disturbing sight awaiting them. The bodies of fallen soldiers lined the path, a chilling message from Vlad. The gruesome display unsettled Mehmed, a clear indication of the formidable power Vlad now wielded. At dawn, Marina discovered that sunlight had burned Vlad's skin. Desperate for answers, she confronted him, and Vlad revealed that he had made a dark pact to gain the strength necessary to protect his family and his people. Instead of condemning him, Marina showed understanding, offering her unwavering support. She promised to lead their people to safety, trusting Vlad would join them once night had fallen. That night, as the people made their way to the monastery fortress, they were ambushed by Turkish forces. Chaos ensued, and despite Dumitru's efforts to protect Marina and Ingaras, he was severely wounded. Just as things seemed hopeless, Vlad arrived, cloaked in darkness, and launched a fierce counterattack, throwing Turkish soldiers into a ravine and securing a brief but crucial victory. Although victorious, Vlad was devastated by Dumitru's death, mourning the loss of a loyal friend and ally. Upon reaching the monastery fortress, he immediately began formulating plans to defend his people from Sultan Mehmed's attack. Yet doubt began to fester in his ranks. Lucian, once an ally, confronted Vlad in his tent, demanding the truth of his transformation. To prove his suspicions, Lucian tore open the tent, allowing sunlight to stream in, searing Vlad's skin. The sight terrified the people of Transylvania, who had once looked up to Vlad as their protector. Fear spread quickly among the villagers, and panic set in. Believing that they could rid themselves of the threat, they set fire to Vlad's tent, convinced they were eliminating the danger posed by the one who had once been their hero. Moments later, Vlad emerged from the tent, his expression grim. With a heavy heart, he confessed to wielding unnatural powers to protect them all. Some of the people understood, but others remained uncertain, their mistrust lingering in the air. As dawn broke, the Turkish army advanced on the monastery fortress. Vlad knew his powers would only last until sunset. With intense focus, he called upon the swarm of bats circling above, using his newfound abilities to direct them toward the enemy. The bats created chaos, scattering the Turkish forces and disrupting their formation. But Sultan Mehmed had anticipated his move. Vlad targeted a soldier he believed to be Mehmed, only to find it was a decoy. As the battle raged on, Turkish soldiers infiltrated the fortress, seizing Ingaras and attacking Marina. Vlad fought fiercely to protect her, but one assailant escaped with their son. In her desperate attempt to save Ingaras, Marina slipped near the edge of a cliff. Vlad rushed to her, but it was too late. With her final breath, she urged him to embrace his powers fully, to rescue Ingaras and protect their people. Heartbroken yet resolute, Vlad accepted her wish, embracing his dark fate. As his transformation completed, the master vampire, the one who had granted him these powers, was freed from his curse and returned to his mortal form. Vlad returned to his soldiers, offering them the same dark strength he had acquired. They, inspired by his sacrifice, accepted the offer, becoming a formidable force under his command. With his army now transformed, Vlad led them towards Sultan Mehmed's camp, ready for the final confrontation that would determine the fate of his family, his people, and himself. As dark clouds cloaked the sun, the air thickened with tension. Mehmed, now aware of Vlad's full vampiric power, watched as the vampire prince led his army of night creatures into the Turkish camp. Bursting into Mehmed's tent, Vlad faced a trap. Silver coins meant to weaken him. Despite the silver's effect, Vlad fought with relentless fury, but it nearly cost him his life. In a final desperate move, he transformed into a swarm of bats, reclaimed his weapon, and drove a spear through Mehmed's heart. Emerging from the tent, Vlad, now Dracula, stood over the fallen sultan, his eyes burning with new purpose. "I am no longer Vlad," he declared. "I am Dracula, a creature of darkness." With his army victorious, Dracula witnessed his dark forces claim the battlefield, but the triumph was short-lived. Caesar, an old ally turned vampire, sought to feed on Ingarus, declaring humans their new enemies. Without hesitation, Dracula intervened, swiftly striking down Caesar to protect his son. Lucian, now leader of a holy order, arrived with a talisman to repel the creatures of the night. He demanded that Ingarus be entrusted to him for his safety. With a heavy heart, Dracula handed over his son, knowing it was the only way to secure his future. Raising his hands to the sky, Dracula parted the dark clouds, letting sunlight flood the battlefield. The blazing sun consumed his vampiric army, and with a final act of redemption, it incinerated him as well. Days later, Ingarus was crowned the new Prince of Transylvania. Though the land began to heal, Dracula's legacy was far from over. Skelgum, ever loyal, sacrificed his own blood to resurrect him. Dracula rose again, now an eternal legend. As he walked among humanity, Dracula encountered a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Mirena. Intrigued, he approached her, introducing himself as Vlad. The woman, Mina, smiled warmly, and the two began to converse. From the shadows, the master vampire watched with a sly grin, knowing the legend of Dracula was far from its end. And so, the tale of Dracula Untold concludes. Thank you for joining this journey. See you in the next video.